Thank you all for being here. My name is Rebecca North. I'm the Executive Director here at the Ecological Farming Association. It's been an honor and a privilege to organize this with incredible staff and such an amazing board and so many great sponsors, the Planning Committee, the Advanced Farmer Committee, and our Spanish Advisory Committee, and just so many really fantastic people, brilliant minds all working together to put this on. I am going to keep it short, but as I was cleaning up from the dance last night, I was thinking two things. Number one, next year bring gloves. And number two, what brought me to EcoFarm? And I was thinking that I think what it was is I grew up in New Jersey, and as I start telling the story, you're probably going to start hearing that. You know, I get excited, a lot of W's and words, they just start appearing. Having grown up there, the growing season was very short, and my father always had a garden. And my earliest memory, the very first memory, is of just pulling asparagus out of the ground and eating it, sitting on a little red fence. I was maybe 3. And I really feel like that was the beginning of my understanding about food, where it came from, how it got to the plate, digging potatoes with him, understanding like what things need to grow. I think of Wanda saying just yesterday, like water, sun, food, the things that are going to plants also need to go into the human body in a pure, healthy way, right? That's kind of where organics comes in, where regenerative growing comes in, biodynamics, all these things, all this hard work that y'all are doing. And I just so appreciate the work that you do and find it so honorable that you're growing food to feed this entire world. And in so many ways, right? And I think that's what EcoFarm does, is it provides support and love, and we're finding nourishment here for our souls and each other. I know it sounds a little bit corny. That's what California did to me. See, I wasn't like this when I lived on the East Coast, I'm telling you. So think about what brought you here to EcoFarm. What would bring you back? And as we reflect on that, we'll start planning for 2026, and I'm looking forward to hearing what we can do better, what you want to see, and we listen to those surveys, so fill them in, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I have a few community announcements to make. But first off, I'm Nancy. Hello. Some of y'all have seen me running around, program coordinator for EcoFarm. And as Rebecca was sharing earlier about feedback, we really, really value your feedback. You might have seen workshop evaluation forms posted in various rooms, and we would love to receive your thoughts and questions and whatever you would like to see for 2026 and beyond. There's a digital form, the same one that's on our website, and also a conference evaluation form. One lucky winner will receive a full conference pass for 2026, so make sure to fill it out. For lodging, checkout is at 11 a.m. Please make sure to be out of your room by then, and if you have lost an item, they are probably at Surf and Sand. We have a lost and found area, or you can also check the front desk at Asilomar in the social hall. We don't take any lost items back to our office, so if you don't pick them up before they leave, they will be donated to a local thrift store. At 1 p.m. on the beach will be our closing circle, and I will announce our raffle winners as well. Bryce Lundberg won the Afghan. It's over there. And then Therese Tuttle won the wreath from Full Belly Farm. I will also share out our community agreement again on this last day of EcoFarm. EcoFarm seeks to create a community and culture that is respectful, open, curious, and kind. Please join us in these agreements to create a good experience for all. Thank you so much, and we just have one more quick community member announcement before going into our opening blessing by Canyon. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Calhoun, and I just want to tell you a story of resilience, endurance, and persistence. And I hope I don't embarrass the person that I'm going to be talking about, but I'm moved to do this, and I hope you all appreciate it. In 1985, I opened my store in Taos City. I had a natural food store, and Luke, I can't remember whether it was Luke or Matthew Fry, came to our store, and I had just recently gotten, it's a natural food store in 1985, was a little strange, but I got a beer and wine license, and that was kind of strange at that time because a lot of people thought that was contradictory, but I didn't. And so Matthew or Luke, and I could be told who it was by Katrina, but anyway, they came and say, "Hey, you want to buy some organic wine?" And I go, "Sure, that sounds great," you know. So we bought it, and we've been carrying it in our stores ever since. And but that started a whole long relationship with the Fry family, it was coincidental that was the first year I came here to EcoFarm too, and I've been here every year since. I'm just so excited to be part of this community, and I mean that I think 40 years proves how much I am. But anyway, the story is that many of you, I don't know if you're aware of the fact that in October of 2017, there was a massive fire in Redwood Valley where the Fry family have their vineyard and their ranch, and it killed 9 people, and 2 siblings, friends of the family, were killed in that fire also. And every house of every family member in the Frys was burned to the ground. And the winery was burned to the ground. The tanks were all bent, and they're still there. In fact, this summer we went there for the matriarch of the family, Biba, for her 100th birthday, and it was a wonderful gathering. But anyway, the Frys, as I said earlier, persevered through everything. The fire was started by PG&E, and they were sued by, and it took a long time. That was the part of the perseverance, but they persevered, and they got their winery built, and it's there, and I'd encourage anyone to go there and visit it. It's just a state-of-the-art, beautiful facility that the whole family was involved with, and it's just unbelievable. And then also, Katrina's here, but Jonathan isn't, because they're building back their house, and they're putting the roof up right now. And so I think it's a metaphor for all of us going forward, that of their example. And so that's, and I'd like to have Katrina stand if she would. I know it's embarrassing, she's shy, but anyway, Katrina Fry, and it's the same for all of us too. And so everybody stand yourself and clap for yourself, because we've got some challenges before us. Thank you very much.
Mishmin Tuhis. Can I hear you say Mishish Tu? You just said good day in the Rumsian language. Rumsian is the first language of this land right here, right now. And Mishmintuhis means good day in the Mutsun language, the territory that I come from. I'm tribal chair from Indian Canyon Nation, daughter of Anne-Marie Sayers, daughter of Elena Sayers. And I've always known where I come from. I recognize my privilege. And being raised on the land, always knowing where my ancestors have come from, I recognize the responsibility that it takes to be a good community member and to be of good influence to the best of my ability. And my presence here at EcoFarm is just one little moment, a moment in time to help community recognize what Indigenous protocol is. Indigenous protocol is by becoming familiar with the Indigenous peoples and histories of these spaces and places, and the history from that point on to how it is we came to be in community together. So it's very important that we honor those histories, those narratives, those occurrences, and all of that has come to be how we are in community. We are Ama Piritakawas, people of this land, and we recognize Indigenous protocol, the original histories of this land. And so, welcome to Rumsian, Ohlone territory, and parts of Monterey County that are a little south towards Big Sur is Esalen territory. And then the broader Bay Area, you might have heard that word Ohlone, which is a misnomer. However, I'm a proud Ohlone individual. Ohlone comes from a single word, Ohlone. Can you say that? Ohlone. So some Native peoples who trace their ancestry are proud Ohlone. Some do not like that word because it is a post-contact, post-colonial phrase of endurance. It's kind of like saying, like, some of you are from Silicon Valley. It doesn't say that you're from San Jose or San Francisco. So I wanted to, one, invite y'all to that closing ceremony. We're going to call in that rain because water is life. So I'll be down there by the beach. And it's so very humbling that our community members have brought in spirituality, ceremony, and ritual. Because my mother taught me, and her mother taught her, when song, ceremony, and dancing stops, so does the earth. I believe that, and I also want to remind y'all, I have these mini-zines, and we're going to do a call and respond. So in my mini-zines, which is free on my website, Canyon Consulting, we're going to do a call and respond because I'm going to teach you language. Because, again, when you stop singing, when you stop being in prayer, when you stop dancing, you are, well, aiding in the slow, painful passing of the earth. So let's not stop. So I'm going to encourage y'all to repeat after me. Pide kanama, si compatian, he tu canoso, soto canoso. And all right, I'm going to do another colonial tongue. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi el viento, fuego mi espíritu. And now the other colonial tongue. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, fire my spirit, and no son. In my Mutsun language, it means in breath, so it is in spirit. And we, with that communal breath, we're all aligned. Did you notice how we kind of harmonize relatively quickly? You notice that feeling and that sensation? Our ancestors have always done that. Our ancestors have always had earth-based spiritual connections, and we can honor that indigeneity by honoring that truth and history and the history of this place-based knowledge. And so I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and from, we don't actually use the word heart, we use kansire, which is liver, the seat of emotion. So technically I'm saying, like, from the bottom of my liver, deep appreciation to all of those who you are here right now. And I do have a tiny ask. I come from Indian Canyon, which is the only federally recognized Indian country, and a lot of things are on my shoulder as tribal chair, and we live off the grid, and it's really challenging that the First Nations people of this territory in the heart of Silicon Valley are living in third world conditions with limited no resource. We are not federally recognized. We don't get federal government aid. We don't get assistive aid, and I don't have a casino where I get dividends or, per cap. There is no help. And yesterday, I have 2 disabled elders living off the grid who don't even have electricity. So they have gone almost 40. They're coming around to 48 hours with no electricity. And if you have any organizations that like to help nonprofits, like to help tribal peoples, like to learn or connect with off-the-grid living systems, enjoy permaculture classes that talk about decolonization, engage in fire mimicry, or want to have a field trip, I would love to talk to you. I would love to connect and network because it comes to relationship building. It comes to community building. And so I will be present here until that closing ceremony. And I am just so thankful that I'm able to connect with community here. So that's my tiny little ask is please connect. And also on that page 8, my information is there, canyonconsulting.com. Or for those of you who just may have some extra ends, Indian Canyon at coasttoknowan.org is our Zelle, and we deeply appreciate, even if it's a single dollar, if you have businesses that do matching, let's talk. That way we can get everybody to say, you know, like, get your organization to match those funds. A single dollar goes a long way, and I'm just really challenged right now being far away from my elders that need my help, and I'm not any good there because I'm not a solar and a Generac technician, so even if I raced home to help my elders, I still would not be totally of resource. So the next thing I could do is reach out to community who may know somebody who can help. So I'm appreciative of you, and I hope to be of service to the best of my ability, and welcome to Rumsey and Ohlone territory. Oh!
Thank you so much, Canyon, and folks definitely reach out to them, find them here, after, during, go to page 8, support where you can, thank you. I will now have, I get the honor of introducing our first speaker, Charlene Eigen-Vasquez. She is of Ohlone descent from the village of Chitaktak. She is dedicated to Landback initiatives, land preservation, land restoration, cultural revitalization, and environmental justice, because these initiatives have a direct impact on physical and mental health. As a mother and grandmother, she completed a law degree so that she might better serve Indigenous communities. Today, her focus is on regenerative leadership strategies and leveraging her legal and mediation skills to advocate for Indigenous interests, negotiate agreements, and build relational bridges. She is an acknowledged peacemaker, trained by tribal Supreme Court justices. Charlene is the former CEO and director of self-governance for the Healing and Reconciliation Institute. Charlene also serves as chairwoman of the Confederation of Ohlone People, co-chair of the Parajo Valley Ohlone Indian Council, and board vice president for the Santa Clara Valley Indian Health Center. Charlene was recently brought into Planet Women's 100 Women Pathway, a cohort of diverse women leaders at the helm of the environmental movement. Let's give her a round of applause as she comes up stage. Thank you.
Good morning, relatives. And I say that fondly. I'll just well, you know what? I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'll explain what that all means. So, here I am. I'm going to intermix a little bit of Mutsun language. I know Canyon uses a little bit of the language, but what I'll say about the Mutsun language is that the last fluent speaker passed in the 1930s. And so every time I speak just a few words, you can imagine the chills that rush through my body, and sometimes tears well in my eyes to imagine that our language disappeared and was silenced for many decades. And so we're doing our best to bring it back, and I ask Creator and all my ancestors for forgiveness if I mispronounce anything. But we're just doing our best. Kan Ohlone, kan Charlene. Kan Pire, kan Chitaktak. I am the daughter of Phyllis Flores. I am the granddaughter of Edna Hernandez. I am the great-granddaughter of Francis Herman. And my lineage goes back to, and writing that is, to Margarita Butron, who married a Spaniard not that far away from here, near the mission of Carmel. She was 14 years old, and at the time, that was the way to create a union between the Spaniards and the Ohlone people. So I always feel her spirit and wonder what it was like to be so young and in that position. Back to relatives. I spoke to somebody after one of the sessions, and she came up to me and said, "I'm not Indigenous. Thank you for saying the things you say." And I've heard this many, many times. And what I tell people again and again is we are Indigenous to somewhere. So yes, you are Indigenous. And the idea of relationship and kinship, we are all related. And for that reason, it is incredibly important for us to respect one another, to teach one another, to share our knowledge. And so it's with humility that I come to this conference and listen to every single session that I was able to attend. Not to speak, but to listen deeply and hear about all of the work that the beautiful people here are doing. I was just telling somebody, I generally don't have any papers, and I always forget something that I want to say. So I'm going to half work off my papers and half not, and I'm still going to forget something at the end of the day. But what I will say is that, first off, I need to give some gratitude, right? Some gratitude for the position I hold, some gratitude for the spaces that I'm able to enter, some gratitude for people that are so generous to share their time with us, the Ohlone people. And I'll start with my grandparents. So as you probably know, when you hear Indigenous people speak, people of color speak, often it goes right back to their family, right? And so those are the first people that we think about. And so for my grandparents, I think about, so Rebecca, you were talking about your childhood. It reminded me, again, off and on the paper, right? It reminded me of my childhood. I'll go back just a little bit to baby Charlene. I was like 4 years old. And I was really, really sick. So some people may or may not know, and I'll just say I was really sick. I was in the hospital for a really long time. And I couldn't do a lot of things. And so this is in the 60s, and all my cousins would come over. We had this amazing apricot tree in our yard. And all of our cousins would come over, and they'd climb in that tree and eat these apricots. I wasn't allowed to climb in the tree. So I would just stand there. And then one day, I decided to stand on top of the picnic table that my cousin pushed under the tree so I could stand up there. And they were throwing me apricots. And that's like my first real memory of me being immersed in fruit. I did grow up in San Jose, so if anybody knows anything about San Jose or the Bay Area, it was all orchards. So we had our own special apricot tree. Fast forward, really not that fast, but not that far. I'm about 8 years old, and my grandmother, who had been working in the fields for a bit, and my grandparents on both sides actually had been for a while, my grandmother decided that we all needed to have an experience working in the field. And so she contracted out a small section of prunes. People laugh when I say prunes because they're not really prunes, but we all called them prunes, right? They were meant to be prunes, but they were plums, of course. And so she contracted out this space and had us all out there to work, right? And this is before anybody cared about child labor laws that closely. So it was myself. I was the youngest. The oldest was probably about 13. And my poor grandma, I was working really hard. I was just a little kid, but I was trying to do my best. And here's these buckets, and I'm trying to fill them up, sorry. But the other kids were like, why are we here? What are we doing? They didn't understand. I didn't understand either. I just loved my grandmother, and I wanted to work as hard as I could, and I could see the desperation on her face. But they didn't want to work. They wanted to sit in the shade. Why can't we just eat these? They had no idea. So the lesson was not learned there, but I definitely learned. I learned about how much my grandmother cared for us and wanted to teach us something different. And then later on, ended up, Yeah, a few stories. Later on, ended up cutting apricots for a season, and this was my girlfriend. We're like 13 now, and my girlfriend's mom was like, you two need to like learn how to earn some money. So we went and we cut apricots for a whole season. We made each about $100, and we were so excited because we didn't get, there was no such thing as, I don't even know the word, you know, when you give kids money? Yeah, see, I don't even know that. Never gave my kids allowance either. So we had no idea, and this was the most money that we'd ever had in our lives. And we thought, oh, we're gonna buy school clothes, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And we told our plan to our parents, and they're pretty excited. They're like, okay, those are good things. So they sent us off and dropped us off at some store, probably JCPenney's or something, or maybe it was a flea market, I'm not sure. But we took our money, and when we came back, we had our clothes, and they said, so how'd it go? And we told them, and they said, so how much do you have left? And we're like, nothing. At that time, they couldn't even imagine us spending that much money in one day. That would have lasted them a week feeding us or more, right? But we had no idea. So those are just some of my first memories, and in thinking about those memories, I'm like, okay, that is one of the connections that we have, like people that are in farming, people that are doing this work. It's you have probably some memory of your childhood working on farms and gardens and things like that. And I share that story because I actually had to share those kinds of stories in front of a group in Santa Cruz. It was a city council, it was a mayor, and a few other people around protection of a sacred site. Because at that time, there was cultural remains and an ancestor that had been unearthed, and they couldn't understand why they needed to stop. They couldn't understand that actually the descendants of that child, we still were here, we were still living. So I had to remind them, what was your life like? Do you remember the earth? What is your legacy that you're about to leave behind? And when we can make those connections to soil, to earth, all of a sudden things shift. So that's why I tell that story. That's why childhood stories are really so important. The next thing I need to do is to, to send appreciation to Miss Anne-Marie Sayers. So one story I tell people is, when I was a child, I was the shyest person you could possibly imagine. And there's more to go with it, but I don't want to waste your time. I will just say you couldn't get a peep out of me. And it wasn't until I got angry about something. So that meant I was a straight A student. That meant I was a book reader. That meant I spent all my time with my grandparents who loved me dearly. But it wasn't until I got really angry about something that I finally found my voice. And it was Miss Anne-Marie Sayers who said, Charlene, come to San Francisco. I'm going to go speak, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure, of course, because I would always support her, right? So drove 2 hours to San Francisco. She's standing there on the top of these stairs. You made it. Whoo, I didn't think you were coming. She gives me this big hug, and she says, oh, by the way, when they call my name, I'm giving my time to you. That was the first time that I ever spoke in a big forum. I, by the way, did the same thing the same day, because again, I'm so quiet, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, what am I supposed to say? So she coached me a little bit, and I said, okay, well, before I speak, I had brought my son with me, Anthony, and I said, thought to myself, before I speak, he's going on. And he was not shy, but I will say he was probably about 8 or 9 years old, but he was a singer, and he was a singer for our community. And he also had opinions, and he had been going to like organizing meetings, grassroots like development meetings since he was itty bitty. Like since he could walk, I had him there. He was on the chair next to me at big tables listening to all of this. So I had to trust in Creator that everything would be fine and that he would break the ice and I would be okay. So it was our turn. We came up. I even filled out a card for him. Came up, and the first thing that he did was sing a song. I didn't tell him to do that. the first thing he did was sing a song. And when he sang that song, I felt the prayer, and it allowed me to say what I needed to say. So I want to thank Miss Anne-Marie for setting that up. Well, opening the door. An elder tells me today, that person didn't open the door, they unlocked the door. And that's all you can do. All you can do is unlock the door. And if somebody decides to open the door for themselves, then it happens. And then I can go on and on with appreciations, but the next one and the final one that I want to give is to Rupa Marya and Benjamin Farr, who I hope he's in here somewhere. It was about 15 years ago that I met them, thanks to Anthony, who said, you've got to meet these people. They're so awesome. They have this great idea. I know that you're going to connect, and you've been talking about this stuff. It's all about land, blah, blah, blah. So we had dinner, and they shared their vision. And that was such a long time ago, but you have to be consistent. You have to follow those dreams. You have to follow those visions, because if you do, magic happens. And so many years later, they actually were able to access land through a lease, I'll say, because I went to that workshop too, but through a lease, and then start to design this amazing place. And if you ask me, it's a piece of art. So now I work for them, with them, I should say, but it's a work of art. The way the place is designed, the contours of the land. It's a combination of, yes, farm food that feeds the community for free. All the food is given away. But without both of them and their vision and their trust in the community to collaborate with them to continue to build this beautiful place, I would not be here today. So many Indigenous people that have come to visit the farm, talking about hundreds of people by now, have come to visit the farm for peacemaking, for ceremony, for food, to volunteer, apprentices that have come to learn some of these special techniques. None of that would happen. But it's all about creating this beautiful place. It's all about listening to community. It's all about building, right? For a resilient future is what we're hoping for. A resilient future. So just thank you to both of them. I know that, Ben's on doing his own other work, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing and beautiful, but we still have Rupa to guide us. So thank you for that, Dr. Rupa. So our talk is about strength, and it's about resiliency. And it's about, somebody asked us not that long ago about breaking down silos. And I think what I want to say is that it takes, first and foremost, Gaik, and that means strength. And again, I just want to bring those words back to life. When I think about solidarity, when I think about work and how that happens, the first thing that folks think about, probably and often, is the human being next to them. How can I work with that person to create solidarity, and solidarity to create a movement, right? Often that's what people think about. And for this little time that I have you, I would like to help you make a little bit of a shift, if that's what you're thinking. And imagine that solidarity, to me at least, is not just that person sitting next to you, but solidarity means including everybody, everything, all our relations, from the past and into the future. So solidarity, for the moment, we're going to say, is Earth, a space for Earth. There's actually a movement called the Rights of Nature, and it has legal precedence, which means we might sit in council, and here are 4 chairs, but this 5th chair right here is for Earth and all living beings. Can we imagine operating like that? Because if we can imagine operating like that, then the places and the spaces where farming and ranching is happening will include all living beings. So then you're gonna, as you're working, you're gonna think about the winged ones, right? You're gonna think about the finned ones. You're gonna think about, they call them the creepy crawlers, right? These are all the words they use in ceremony. You're gonna think about our ancestors. You're gonna think about the future generations, and you're gonna think about yourself as an ancestor and what you have to offer. You will always think about those things, right? But we're in relation, we're building these spaces, and now all of a sudden Earth has a spot. And to me, when I was listening to some of the speakers here as I was going through workshops, again, it just warmed my heart, because without saying that, I can feel it. I can feel the love that people have for Earth. I can, soil science is a testament to loving Earth, right? And actually, allowing people to come onto this place that you're stewarding to regularly test water, regularly test soil, so that when somebody says, I'm healing the earth, and somebody else says, oh, you're making it up, or, what kind of proof do you have? You actually have really hard, tangible proof that this is happening and this is how we're doing it, and we're creating a model. Now imagine this, I don't know how many people came to this conference, but we'll just imagine it's 1,000 people. What about the ripple effect of that work, right? Each one of you, so many people have called this place home, and each one of you get to go to different conferences, different meetings, different planning sessions, right? And you hold these things dear to your heart, that the common elements to a good farm design include Earth having a seat at the table in all our relations, acknowledging indigenous plants and animals and people in your design, and asking for indigenous engagement to make your space even stronger. It requires that we test our model once in a while. And we can use scientific tests, but you can also do what we do sometimes, which is really listen to your gut. And what I say this because we open the space up for healing, as I mentioned before, and that's my role as cultural steward, one of my roles, right, is to bring people in. And to me, that's a test to see whether or not we're doing the right thing. So we bring people in, we invite people to come, and maybe they're going to hold a workshop there, or maybe we're holding a workshop for them. We invite them to come and volunteer. And I'll tell you a little story, and it just makes me so happy every single time, is I had invited 4 people that were also peacemakers to come on site. We were going to have a planning meeting, and I was a little late. They were a little late, and they were really anxious, and then they were upset when they found out why they were late. It was a fundraiser for our current president, and it was, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and they couldn't believe that they were stuck in traffic for that and had opinions about it. But without taking any sides and without saying whether they were right or wrong, when they arrived, they were just so anxious and tense and thinking about the outside world. And immediately, as soon as they got off their vehicle, I said, welcome, welcome home. And I gave them a big hug, and I said, you made it, you're safe. And they said, but we're late, and do you want to hear our story? I said, not yet, let's go over here and let's go talk to the tree. And then let me give you a little tour, and after the tour, if you still want to share your story, you can share your story. So we took the tour, and afterwards I said, oh, you had a story. Do you want to go ahead and tell me? And they said, actually, no, it doesn't matter anymore. That's what we want, right? That's what you want. You want something so beautiful, so amazing. They don't even know why. I know why. They walked by the medicine, and the medicine was smelling strong. They ate a strawberry along the way. I'm telling you, this place is probably like some of your places where it's like this little bubble, this beautiful bubble, and people are so excited to be there. I call it a sanctuary, and I think we need these all across the world. all across the world. And that's why it's important to share our spaces, tell our stories, and the magic that happens in them, because it's not just a farm, right? Our spaces are not just farms. Our spaces are an opportunity to help people return home to themselves, to their ancestry, to all that was. And I'll tell you what, people ask me this too. Everything that's happening out in the world, I try not to pay attention because, as I was told by elders, there's cycles. Whether you're talking about climate change or administration or whatever it is, those are cycles, and they're going to happen again and again and again. But they're also distractions. Somebody in a workshop said, but this work is so hard. It is hard, so don't be distracted. Like, focus on that work. People need you. People need to know how to preserve food, to grow food, to take care of the land. You know, recently, and this was very stressful, recently, if you live around here, you know about the battery fire. And so the battery fire is happening, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And people are calling me and texting me, oh my goodness. And it is like heartbreaking, because if you're tending the earth, and what I was thinking was like, we're tending the earth, so many visitors coming from across the country, they're coming from different places in the world. Indigenous people finally have a safe place to come and be and lay their heads. Other people, healthcare workers, right? They're coming in droves because they have their own anxieties that are happening due to, things that are happening in the world. And now, all of a sudden, you have toxic fumes covering the earth, spoiling the water. It's like, wow. No matter how hard we work, something's going on. So, yet we can't give up, right? Yet we'll have to deal with that. I contacted some friends that I know that have been testing soil and testing water for nearly 20 years, and they're like, don't worry, Charlene, we have a baseline. We have a baseline, and if there's a change, we know what to do, and we'll go back to that company, and we'll make sure that they pay and that things get better. But I also believe, and I have to hold, I lost faith for a little bit when I was panicked, because I have to believe, and some of you might have seen it, is that Earth knows how to take care of herself. And for a moment, we get distracted by these toxins and the fires and all of that, And Earth knows how to take care of herself, but we have to learn how to take care of her if we don't already know how to. And we have to have the faith that if we take care of her and all living relatives, right, that everything will be okay. Now, I'll tell you what, that's a long-term vision. I mean, for really young people, they're like, I'm doing this year, this next year. I won't tell you my age, but I've been doing this for many decades. It's a long-term vision. When you talk about Landback, people would say, do you think that's ever going to happen? I'm like, of course it's going to happen. And it is happening now, and it's been a long time fight for like many Indigenous people. I would say it's harder for people that are not federally recognized, as Kenyon mentioned. Like, there's more hurdles to that problem. But it's happening. You just have to hang in there for the long term, right? So that's kind of what's happening here. In the 70s, people were making organic farming really popular, right? And that's not brand new either. There were trends before that. But hanging in there for all this time and planting the seeds and doing the right thing, now to see it explode, right? I was recently talking to somebody and saying, well, sometimes our egos get a little hurt because we're like, this is the way it should be. We have ideas around, for example, organic food and how it should be treated, and the commodification, right, of all of the work, and not everybody can afford it, and there's like all kinds of things, right? I get that, but we also have to realize that good for one is good for all. And if we want to change the hearts and the minds and the souls of the people that seem to be doing harm with harmful policies, harmful decision-making, inaction, whatever it is, I was taught from a very, very young age, you have to love everybody, they don't have to love you back. And that's how our family was raised. Like, you just don't stop loving. And even when somebody harms you, you might have to put a pause, you might have to put distance between you and another person for a while, but you always have to figure out how to get back. How do you get that back? How do you bring them back home? So those are just kind of things, you know, around like the long haul. How do you do this? How do you make this happen? So this is what I want to suggest for you. Think about how the farm that you're attending or the space that you're attending is held. And if you happen to be a title holder, not a landowner, a title holder, think about easements for a moment. And is that a possibility? So you can have either a conservation easement or you can have a cultural easement on land, right? And what does that mean? If you're really dedicated to open space, if you're really dedicated to conservation, then the fact that maybe your property would be, the value would be decreased slightly, maybe that is not as important as the value you bring to society with those easements. So think about that as a good relative. Oops. I think my page has gotten a little mixed up. The other thing to think about is, the last thing I would have you think about is the diversity on your space, right? So diversity, yes, it means different plants, it means maybe different animals, but also bring back those indigenous plants that once were. It will heal your space. And the other thing you can do is also bring back those indigenous animals, and that might sound kind of crazy, but what it means is you bring back those feeders, right? Those things that will feed them. I was taught by some Navajo relatives way back when that you don't worry about the deer that's going to eat your food. You plant a crop for the deer. And in that way, you don't have to worry about it. It's an ecosystem that you're tending, right? It's an ecosystem that you're tending. I won't take up too much more of your time, but I just hope that you think about a couple of things. Number one, earth first, right? A seat at the table. Another one is diversity in your space and what that means. Another thing is storytelling. Make sure whatever work you're doing includes storytelling. And make sure that there's really young people, and I'm talking about little ones like Bija, right? And younger. Make sure those 5-year-olds, remember my story? Make sure those 5-year-olds are there. If they do a little work, great. If they just play, that's fine too. They will keep those memories forever of what is going on, right? And then the last thing I will say is, bring in the community. Bring in the community, and hopefully you can find some indigenous people that you're working with to provide you with some feedback, with some guidance. Create a beautiful space that is your sanctuary and connect to other sanctuaries. I will tell you what, I invite people to Zukajim, which is near San Gregorio, was San Gregorio, we're trying to change that name. But I know places in New Jersey and New York and Maine. I know a place in Canada that I can go to, and now Texas. But they should all be connected, right? And they should all be our homes and our safe places, especially as the world turns. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene. I'll introduce our next speaker, Dr. Rupa Marya. And I think just for the sake of time, we'll omit the Q&As so that Rupa has her full time to speak, and we can respect everyone's lunch schedules and time getting out of Merrill. But I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Rupa Marya. She's a physician, activist, writer, mother, and a composer. Rupa is a professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, where she practices and teaches internal medicine. Her work sits at the nexus of climate, health, and racial justice. Dr. Marya co-founded the Do No Harm Coalition, a collective of healthcare workers who advance health equity through structural change. She also works with the Deep Medicine Circle, an organization committed to healing the wounds of colonialism through food, medicine, story, and learning. Marya has toured 29 countries with her band, Rupa and the April Fishes, whose music was described by the legend Gil Scott-Heron as liberation music. Together with Raj Patel, she co-authored the best-selling book, Inflamed Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Justice, featured at the book signing yesterday. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, EcoFarm. I just can't believe it's 40 years. That means the first one happened when I was 10. I'm 50 this year. Thank you, Charlene, for that beautiful talk. Thank you, Canyon, for opening us up in a beautiful way. Thank you to everyone for being here. I'm going to talk about our work with the Deep Medicine Circle, but I'm first going to say that I think I am the first person to speak at EcoFarm who's been called a terrorist for everything that I do, actually in everything that I do. And so we're going to go through, like, what is this terrorist thing? So this is the first review of my band when we toured. Clearly the work of a terrorist organization. Rupa and the April Fishes promote dangerous anti-American activities such as singing together and exuberant dancing, which we did right here. Which we did right here on this hall, I think 10 years ago at EcoFarm, which was amazing. So that was my first terrorist activity. Here I am being a terrorist in Germany in front of like 18,000 people, and with my terrorist brother, Boots Riley. We're getting him down at the farm. He's also a terrorist. And then here I am as a doctor because my patients were getting shot by the San Francisco Police Department. So people who were unhoused, who I knew as a physician, were being shot because the tech elite who were moving into the Bay Area wanted our housing. They evicted me. Doctor couldn't take the double rent in 1 month. So I, in my terrorist fashion, stood with my community to say, stop shooting poor black, brown, and unhoused people. So I was labeled a terrorist there. There we are walking down the street to talk to the mayor about how the people were being shot in the street. It's another terrorist activity I was engaged in, actually called by Charlene's son, Anthony Sewell. That's me listening to the Dakota Access Pipeline for a heartbeat. I didn't hear one. And so the grandmothers out there, sat me down and asked me to help them build a clinic to decolonize medicine. I said, what the hell does that mean? It sort of blew my mind. And after yelling at me for about an hour in a teepee about my settler privilege, and I cried for about an hour, they said, you're a good person. Come and help us build this clinic. And so I did. And so it was about 5 incredible years of further terrorist activity in which they said, if we're going to decolonize medicine, we have to decolonize food. And what started as a clinic quickly became a vision for a farm in Standing Rock territory, and then quickly became this vision of bringing back ceremonies that had been extinct for 200 years, a buffalo hunt, a coming-of-age ceremony for women, taking claim again about birthing and dying rituals in their community, remembering the land, remembering themselves. And then here's me, probably in the most outrageous terrorist activity, feeding poor people in Oakland with the food we grow at the Deep Medicine Circle. I'm telling you, literally, I've been called a terrorist for all of these activities. And so that made me really start to think, oh, this is my latest one. Sorry, I'm a terrorist now because I've said stop bombing hospitals. And now I've been labeled as a terrorist and suspended at UCSF in the legacy legacy of my mentors, Angela Davis, suspended for saying there's no sane reality where children should be shot, where doctors and patients should be shot. And now we have the ICE raids have been authorized to go into our hospitals to pull patients out of their beds. So we're living in very strange times. We're living in upside down times, and it doesn't have to be this way. And so as I think through my terrorist activity, I realized to be a terrorist is to be against empire, to be against the American empire. And when I think about the billions of dollars that go to maintain that empire, as opposed to stay here to transform our food system, as opposed to stay here to give everybody health care. I can't tell you how many people I've watched die in the hospital as a hospital medicine physician who are anxious about the debt they are going to leave to their families. This is outrageous. We have so much wealth in this country, and where is it going? And why is it going there? And why is it not going to our people to build a food system that can be resilient in the face of the challenges that are right here, right now, as Los Angeles is aflame, right? We need to be starting to innovate and moving away from systems like this. So I outlined this system back in 2018 when I was thinking through, why am I seeing the same patterns of diseases as I travel around the world to 29 different countries as a physician, musician? And if you go with a stethoscope and you go with your clipboard, people are not going to tell you the stories as if you go travel on farms with your guitar and say, hey, let's like break it down with music, and people break their bread and people bring you into their communities and they tell you why they're sick. And they're sick because of structures in our society that make it impossible to be healthy. I'm talking about poor white people in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, with white supremacist tattoos on their faces, crying in my arms saying, you're the first doctor that listened to me about how poor and sick we are. So these divisions are being exploited right now when we need to start looking at where's the money going, why is the money going that way, and how can that money be used, how can those resources be used here to heal our land and heal our people. And that's the work we're doing at Deep Medicine Circle. So most of the diseases I take care of as a physician are diseases of chronic inflammation. Most of the diseases y'all probably have in this room, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, these are all diseases that have at their root of how the diseases form inflammation. And so you can't treat those diseases that are caused by structural problems through focusing on individuals. And in a colonial capitalist system, they will always tell you to remove the historical context. No, that's politics. We're not talking politics. We're talking about food. We're not talking politics. We're talking about the human body. So they shear people away from their historical context and reality. And what that does is it gives us shallow medicine. It says the disease is in your body. It's in your liver. It's in your heart. It's in your head. But the reality is the disease is actually being caused outside the body. It's being caused in the spaces around the body, and the body is reacting as it has been evolutionarily designed through the inflammatory system to damage. So if the damage is coming from outside the body, deep medicine is what we need. And deep medicine is focusing on the structures around the body to create health. So what do I mean by that? Inflammation is the body's response to damage or the threat of damage. It's an evolutionarily conserved response. It's there in all mammals. You get a paper cut, the inflammatory response is activated. A whole host of cellular mediators go to that site and heal that wound. When that wound is healed, the inflammatory response goes quiet. But if the damage signals keep coming, what happens is that those mediators keep getting produced, and what was a healing response turns into a harming response. You get all the collateral damage from the inflammatory response, which creates chronic inflammatory disease. What we now know from the science is that the sum of your lifetime exposures, whether it's your history, the things that you eat, the air that you breathe, the stories that you're told as a child, the structures of power that you're encountering, all these things, the sum of all these things is called the exposome. The exposome is more predictive of whether or not you're going to develop inflammatory disease than your genome. We are not taught that in medical school. So again, the exposome, all the things you're exposed to, are more predictive of developing cardiovascular disease and diabetes. This to me was shocking as I started to understand this, because we are not talking about the fact that the rates of diabetes are going through the roof around the world. That is not happening because billions of people are making bad choices. That is happening because the structure of the food system, the structure of the economy, the structure of our world is one of empire, and it's causing damage. It's causing damage on our bodies. So what's happening on the cellular level? So this is a schematic of every replicating cell in your body that's not a germline cell, so not the sperm or the ova. What's happening is that as a cell replicates and it gets exposed to a toxic exposome, which can include anything from debt. How many people here have student debt? Raise your hand. How many people here have any debt? Do you carry a debt from your farm, debt from your house, debt? Oh, some people are debt-free. Okay, no one's debt-free. Okay, we've all got debt. This country is built on debt, and debt is how they manufacture scarcity, so you have to go to work. And you will not think of what you need to be doing on this earth. You'll just think of that debt that you have to pay off. Debt itself is an independent driver of chronic inflammation. If you just got rid of all debt, you would drive down fatal heart attacks and suicides by remarkable rates. So this is like public health says, let's have a debt jubilee, okay? Genocide, yes. Genocide, like what's happening right now in Gaza. Genocide, like what happened here with California Native people. Genocide lives in our cellular memory. It doesn't go away. And it won't change this profile it has on the body until we actually address it. So as the body is confronting, our cells experience these threats of damage. They accumulate these markers of cellular damage like telomere erosion, oxidative stress, DNA damage, mitochondrial damage. And cells that age prematurely through repeated exposures to damage enter an early senescence where they stop replicating. Cells that age prematurely through damage then remodel their DNA and take on a phenotype called the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or the SASP cell. These cells become pro-inflammatory mediators, factory, like they just pump out these mediators in your body. And we're finding these cells in every tissue where we have inflammatory disease. So for heart disease, we're finding it in the lining of the endothelium of your blood vessels. For Alzheimer's, we're finding these cells in the brain. Diabetes, we're finding them in the pancreas. Breast cancer, we're finding them in the breast ductal tissue. Even severe COVID, people who came and hit the door with severe COVID to the hospital, those people had high levels of circulating SASP cells. So the body is inflamed, and it's inflamed because of a toxic exposome. Okay? So we thought with the Deep Medicine Circle, we say our work is to heal through food, medicine, storytelling, restoration, and learning. So we were like, okay, how do we create an example of a healthy exposome? Well, let's look at our food system. This is our food system today. And this is not just like pulled out of my head. This is what we can look at in real time today, and we will. Okay? So here is Los Angeles on fire today. There's still fires raging in Los Angeles today. And as those fires are raging, we can think about the San Joaquin Valley. So when colonizers first arrived here, the topsoil, does anyone know how thick the topsoil of the San Joaquin Valley was before colonizers came? Sorry? Say it, shout it out. Huh? No. 24 feet. 24 feet topsoil, right? And it was because of the stewardship of people like the Yokut people who were in there and working with the grizzly and working with the pronghorn and the antelope and the tule elk and these ranging animals. The whole Central Valley was like the Serengeti, because from this melt every year, you would get this just lakes and like wetlands, dense biology, this rich soil, okay? But within, a few decades, California, under colonization, completely changed the hydrology. The grizzly's gone, the salmon's dead, the beaver's gone, the native people who knew how to steward that whole system have been erased. Their knowledge has been erased through genocide. And the water has been, incarcerated through these aqueduct systems so they don't touch the earth in the same way. And as the fires were raging in LA, everyone started talking about, what about the Resnicks, right? So the Resnicks are the world's largest agricultural company, the Wonderful Company, which I think is a hilarious name. So the Resnicks have this $8 billion company, and they own 56% share of the Kern water bank. So they have a privatized a public resource, the commons. They are the 7th largest landowner of prime stolen California native land. They own about 172,000 acres of that land. And what's interesting is because of their controlling interest in the water bank, they're allowed to irrigate their crops even during drought. What's super strange about the Resnicks is they're engaged in a market war for empire with Iran over pistachios. So why is our California resource that could go to the land, to the salmon, to the whole soil system being used for, one family's issue with Iran? It's a good question. They, again, use more to irrigate their crops than all LA homes together. They have more water in storage in the Kern water bank than San Francisco residents could use in 10 years. That's a huge amount of the California commons. So when you look at the impact of that, so that 24 feet of topsoil is now 6 inches. And that is because of the farming practices that have happened in places like the Resnick's farms. It's because of the death of the soil biology and because of the water. The water is not in the land and on the land to hydrate that rich biology. And what we see as doctors is every time the wind blows, that 6 inches of topsoil is in the air and people are getting valley fever, which is a gnarly fungal infection. Sometimes ends up usually as a cough and a cold, sometimes ends up deep-seated in the bones and we have to do amputations. On young people, it's horrible. We do not want to see this happening, and it's happening right now in Kern Valley. So what do they do with their money, the Resnicks? How do they give back? Well, one of the ways they give back is by trying to prevent farm workers from unionizing. So when we look at, these are people who are taking the wealth of our commons for themselves and then engaging in some pretty sociopathic behaviors. The Resnicks are also donating to an Israeli university that fund research on these scary things. This is called a quadcopter drone. The Resnicks fund the IDF that are involved in the genocide here in Gaza. And doctors that I've been in touch with for the last year have described how these drones are literally shooting children in the head walking in the street in Gaza. These drones, Dr. Chris Maynard, who's a physician from Cambridge University in the UK, said that they are throwing the drones into the hospital and then controlling them to mow down patients and doctors within the hospital. It's insane. So if you think about what one family is doing through their farming system, and we think about how, which Charlene was just saying, that these are cycles of genocide, cycles of things. To me, this is, I think this is the root of what we have to address as people. Do we want to create a world with this hellscape? Do we want to continue to invest in empire? Or do we want to compost empire and build a world of care? That's... Let's get that money for our people to build health here. So this week on Wednesday, if you are free next week, we're going to be joining the UN with doctors around the world to talk about our findings on what we've seen there in Gaza. So this is our vision. So how do we build a world of care? If that's the toxic food system we have, what else can we do? Well, this is what we call farming as medicine. And farming as medicine, it sounds like a big idea, like, gosh, this seems like a lot. This schematic is just to show you that nothing leaves the loop. This is what we call a closed economy. This is a regenerative closed loop, okay? And that includes everything from our farming practices, what happens to the soil, the food, the people. What we've seen over 3 years of implementing our Farming as Medicine program is health. And this is what I call whole systems health. It's not health of an individual. It's not health of just the soil. It's not health of just the farmers who get more money. It's the health of everybody. It's the whole system is healthy. And our Farming as Medicine program has 4 main parts. The first one is Landback, and that's what we're partnering with Charlene on, and it has been the most amazing partnership, the most beautiful. It took us a while to find the right fits, but it is totally exciting. It's overwhelmingly exciting. The next thing we do is we frame farmers as the frontline healthcare workers. You guys should be paid better than doctors because I can take care of the diseases, but you guys are the ones who can actually prevent them through the health of the soil, The health of the water, the health of the food, making sure everybody eats. You all are the front line, and you should be paid that way. We decommodify all of our food. So if food has been incarcerated to coerce the labor of the working class people, we say, forget it. Food's a relative again. Everyone eats. You all eat well. And then we get to reframe food as medicine. So we work on these two amazing farms, and both of them have been designed by Benjamin Farr. Is he in the room still? I don't know. He's kind of haranguing the kids. Benjamin Farr has been on the planning committee here. Let's give him a round of applause anyway. Okay. Benjamin has been here at EcoFarm for 27 years, and he's been an amazing asset to this community and to farming communities around the world and to us. So he designed this farm, which is about a mile in from the Pacific Ocean. This is Zukachim. This is the work. It's currently held by Post, but the land will be moved back to the Confederation of Ohlone people, which is the work that we're doing, and we encourage you all to email Post and be like, we can't wait to see you give that land back to Confederation, because this is the kind of work that needs to happen. It is a beautiful site. It was blasted with paraquat for decades, then laid fallow for about 8 years, and now we're just seeing the soil biology rebound. Ben also designed this 1-acre rooftop farm in Oakland, the Rooftop Medicine Farm. It's so beautiful. Oh my God, 20,000 pounds of food came off of this farm, and we've been stewarding this farm about for 3 years, and we do a lot of education work up there, which is super exciting. There's Ben. There he is. He's so happy when he's teaching. So the first part of our work is Landback, remembering. You got to hear Charlene speak with her daughter and her granddaughter here. This work of remembering is so important. And it's funny when you hear people say, well, Landback, what happens if you give land back? Then where do you go? And I'll just have to say, no California Native person has ever told me to shove off. Everyone said, we have so much work to do. We have so much work to do. It's about putting our minds together. It's about growing together. And it's about recognizing how private property has actually impacted us in negative ways, in which how do we learn to share our resources to be good guests on this land? I'm a daughter of Punjabi immigrants. I was born and raised in Ohlone territory, and everything that I have experienced and learned I owe to the Ohlone ancestors here and my ancestors. So I'm so grateful for the work that Charlene is doing to help us remember those ancestors, to bring that consciousness into our mind, and to know that the soil is alive. It's a living being, and the soil has memory. The soil has memory. And when we start to treat that with respect and we treat that with the reverence it requires, we start to have very, very beautiful outcomes. This is just a picture of something that made me so happy to see. After hundreds of years, Charlene finally brought a sweat lodge that was built in the traditional manner and ceremony back onto the land. And that has been incredible and beautiful. Here's Sage LaPena, who was working with us a lot in our first 2 years around the land restoration and looking at the creek that runs through the land. How do we get beaver back? How do we help the salmon population that's in there explode? How do we help retain more water in that place? Farmers as health stewards. Can DMC farm team stand up, please? I want you all to give these guys a round of applause. All of DMC farmers, everyone. Por favor, Antonio, también. Okay, these are some of our amazing farmers. They are incredible. Here are Los Tíos de la Finca. This is Antonio and Manuel. They have been working in farming for like 40 years, and just to hear them speak with gratitude, knowing that the food and their labor is going to feed their community, has been truly profound. So we do a lot of story work in our organization to just hear from people. How does it affect you? What does it mean to you? What does this do? How is this different? And it's been truly beautiful to see as we grow together as a group of people. We're like the UN. As we grow together as a group of people to understand, how did our ancestors do it? How do we do it right here? There's a lot of questions and curiosity. We do a lot of job training. Amani just joined us straight from Colombia, hot off the press, to build out our job training program for this spring. So we're super excited. If we have young people who want to join, please come talk to her. We bring doctors to the soil and doctors up onto the roof to learn, and other healthcare workers workers and nurses to learn about soil biology, to learn about why that microbiology is important in the soil, why the soil food web is critical to the health of humans, how we as humans have to re-enter this sacred web of life. And that work we've been doing, we've been testing our soil at the end of the dry season, at the end of the wet season, every year for the last few years. And what we're seeing is just a beautiful rebounding of biology. And we're seeing that the work is getting easier on the land. This is at Zukachim, as the bulk density is decreasing from our farming practices. So we're using agroecological practices. We're trying to be as low-till as possible so that that soil biology can rebound. This is looking at our soil carbon. So this work was done by Cole Rainey at UC Berkeley. So our soil carbon capture, even at depth, has been quite high, which has been amazing to see. And the part that really struck me is we have the cultivated field about 3 acres up front, and then that field for ceremony, which has just been grazed by deer that roam through. There's a mountain lion, there's a badger, there's like all sorts of animals that go through there, but we don't really touch that field. Maybe we'll mow it once in a while. Our farming practices taking over 30,000 pounds off those acres off those fields are as good as nature recapturing and holding, as a grassland capturing and holding that carbon, which I thought was pretty astounding. Our third thing is we decommodify our food. So as we recognize, famines don't really happen. So the Great Irish Famine, I was told when I was there in October that I had to call it the Great Irish Starvation, where about 1 to 2 million people died. There was plenty of food that was grown. It just went to England. So the problem is not quantity, or the problem is not scarcity. The problem is manufactured scarcity. In India, over 165 million people, excess deaths in my homeland between 1880 and 1920, because Winston Churchill moved our food to England. Looking at Gaza, what's happening right now, millions of children. I was glad to see the IDF soldiers who were released today. The 4 ladies looked very well fed. Millions of children are starving right now as Israel put a chokehold and complete siege, also sponsored by the United States. So our work is really to follow the advice of the Black Panther Party in Oakland, where we work, in their survival agenda. We want to make sure everyone has food. Everyone should eat. This is us doing the work in a clinic at UCSF, where about 80,000 people who are below the federal poverty line are coming, to this clinic to get food. And once we can liberate food from the market system, that's when food becomes medicine. You will not hear me being prescriptive. I'm definitely not of the liberal ilk. I can say, oh, you've got diabetes. Here's this red pepper. Let me just show you the biochemical of the phytochemicals. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about food as medicine through transforming the food system. Food is medicine through re-entering our duties of care for one another. That's when food becomes medicine. And we look at that. And so for myself as a physician, I see my patients getting foods that they've never had access to. I've walked in the hospital and had patients, this one guy asked me, he's like, hey doc, how's your band? I'm like, oh, I can't sing in front of people now because of COVID. I can't be up there singing and someone get COVID. I can't do that right now. And I'm like, but I'm farming. He's like, what are you talking about? You're farming? So I explain what we're doing. And he goes, wait a minute, are you the guys who brought that lettuce to the food hub? That red speckled lettuce? And I'm like, yeah, no, that's an heirloom variety that we're growing. And he's like, when I saw that, I felt cared for. And he got tears in his eyes. And for me, I got tears in my eyes going, oh my God, how do you quantify that biologically? That the man saw a heap of lettuce piled by our farmers and felt in that beauty the care. That is magic. That is what I am all about. So how do we build that care economy? And this is the work we're doing now. I'm trying to whiz through this. That is an organic strawberry, you guys. You can't tell me that ceremony does not do magic. That is an organic strawberry from our farm. It was the best tasting strawberry I've ever had in my life, okay? And that's my hand, not my kid's hand. So what we're doing in Oakland now is we're building the nation's first public utility for food. And we see it like a pump, okay? We're like, how do we take money from agriculture, from healthcare, from climate, into a pump, bake it into the city architecture, and get these outputs? Where we have 10 farms. Let's have 200 farms, 5-acre farms within the city, around the city of Oakland. How do we get that food? How do we get job training for people to do indigenous land stewardship? How do we get food as medicine hubs throughout the city of Oakland? People could just walk down the street and go get their food because they live there, okay? We would see access to nutritious, healthy food for all, healthy ecosystems, healthy people, prosperous communities. Farmers are the linchpin. You guys are the key to this. Imagine farmers going out of college and going, I can get a job for $120K a year, paying me with full benefits because I am farming the healthcare for my community. That's what we want to see. That is the future. And we can do this if we stop, sending so much money for guns to shoot children in schools. We can do this. All right, so Oakland Community Food Public Utility, these are our first partners. We have an amazing group of partners who are building this vision out with us. We've applied for an EPA grant. Elon Musk might turn that all around and we might not get a single cent, but we're still going to build this. And we will look forward to partnering with any of you to build this. As soon as Barbara Lee becomes mayor of Oakland, this is a done deal, so we are very excited. And so we did a little just rough economic analysis. I was like, okay, if we grew 108,000 pounds of food the first 2 years, how much would that cost if we bought all these crops from Earl's Organic, right? It would cost about $380,000. Okay, but for us, it was $350,000 that went directly to our farmers, okay? What we get if we give it to Earl's Organic is that they get a lot of the profit, the farmers get maybe some profit, but that's it. It's an open system. The money leaves the system. But if you give that money directly to farmers, what we saw was increased farmer income. We saw farmer well-being. We saw soil and water health, farmers positioned as the leading edge of the climate health movement for a just ecological transition. We saw rewilding urban landscapes, community engagement. We saw reawakened indigenous practices and relationships, people getting to know each other, community health benefit. And the thing I loved the best was the youth excitement. When youth come to our farms, they just are, their minds are blown, which is the most exciting thing and which we need because farmers are aging out in the United States. We need to make a real investment into farming right now to get young people to see a viable future that is not for empire, not to flood some other market and destroy their local food system, but to build a kick-ass food system here in California. So that is the work that we are seeding. I am so out of time. Oh my God. And I was just like, we're getting called out to go to Ireland because they want to do this work on a national level. They called me out there in October, and then the head of the medical school there just said, hey, Rupa, someone just gifted us a 186-acre farm. Like, how do we bring Deep Medicine Circle over here so we can reawaken our indigenous practices that have been forgotten through 800 years of colonial reorientation on the land? And so that work is happening there, and I'll be heading out there in April for a food sovereignty summit out there, which is so exciting. I just want to mention two people, Jimmy O'Brien Billings, who does this whole work around decolonizing Ireland, beautiful work, and also Lucy O'Hagan. If you're ever in Ireland, she's doing some beautiful work in reawakening Irish land stewardship practices and land relationship practices. So as that's happening in Ireland, what's happening here, right? So as I mentioned, ICE raids in our hospitals, ICE raids in our farms. How do we keep our communities safe and whole in the face of what's here right now that is in service of empire? It's not in service of our communities. And I worry too because even our Native American friends are being harassed and being told they're going to be deported. So we're in a wild, this is real. Someone told me this is Russian propaganda. They said that too when I told them that in October 2023 or November 2023, 100 Israeli doctors called to bomb all the hospitals in Gaza. And I just send up the alarm to the American Medical Association. They're like, oh, don't believe that Russian propaganda. Well, what happened? In the next 6 weeks, every single hospital in Gaza was bombed under false pretenses. It's genocide. It's horrific. So believe it when Native people speak, okay? This I just want to leave for you all. Take a picture. If you don't have these numbers, this is your rapid response community networks. If ICE is in your neighborhoods, if you see ICE in your communities, call them so they can help keep people safe. We need people to be on the farms. We need people to be working together. We need people to keep our neighbors and communities safe. Lastly, this is a movie that's coming out hopefully very soon. We screened it here, the first screening ever. It is so beautiful. It was made by Masha Karpukina, who's an award-winning filmmaker. So I think it's going to be screened somewhere in the next, by The Guardian or some other entity in the next month. But keep your eyes out at deepmedicinecircle.org. We are composting empire. Join us, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Charlene, come here. Y'all, solidarity is our superpower.